about time.
Hey guys, it's the end of the year, and as you always know, especially if you watch the channel yearly, we normally give you top 5 list of like the best movies or the worst movies of the year. I wanted to do something a little different. Instead of just talking about the things that are subjective to us, where it's the best or the worst, I'm gonna talk about the biggest bombs of the year. I mean, the stuff where like we had high hopes for the movie going in, or maybe we had low hopes for the movie going in, but the company spent a ton of money on it and didn't get anywhere near what they were expecting back in returns. So this is going to be based on what they did as a production budget and what they actually pulled in worldwide. So I don't want to just look at domestic, because they do make money overseas and stuff like that, and they do count that towards the success of a movie. But I'm also going to discount for the 1/3 of what they bring in as far as revenue that they got to give back to the movie theaters. And I know, before you guys start commenting, that yes, it can be more, it can be less, depending on the movie and the movie studio. I got it. But 1/3 seems about fair, because I know some places like, oh, cut it in half, or some places are like, you know, give them 40% or like 10%. 1/3 seems to be about good. So they need to make about 3 times what the production budget was in order for it to seem profitable. If it just comes out to like exactly equal or just double what I don't think studios consider that being profitable, especially since I'm not taking in consideration whatever money they spent on marketing for this particular film. All right, so we're gonna start off with number 5. All right, so number 5. Excuse me if I look over, because there's a lot of numbers I gotta say, so I'm gonna look over it just to make sure I have my numbers right. All right, I am actually gonna go with The Fall Guy. Look, this movie probably had high expectations just for me. I mean, it's Ryan Gosling, it's Emily Blunt, in a big movie that's based on an 80s property, an 80s TV show that I was a big fan of. Unfortunately, this movie just way underperformed. Maybe they overthought the audience that was out there for these particular type of remakes. Maybe nobody remembers The Fall Guy, or maybe a lot of people didn't like it and I was the only one keeping that show on the air. But either way, this movie had a production budget of about $125 to $150 million for just to create the movie. It actually only brought in worldwide about 181 million. So they were really looking for about $450 million to actually make this thing profitable, and I guess give us a Fall Guy too. So overall, they lost about $269 million. That is not counting what they may have lost on marketing. So yeah, that was a big disappointment. It's a big disappointment for me, and unfortunately, I didn't even go see the movie. I waited for it on streaming. All right, so that's gonna move on to number 4. All right, so number 4, I went with Mad Max Furiosa. So Mad Max Furiosa had a big hype after the first Tom Hardy Mad Max, and you know, when they decided to do a movie based on Furiosa, then they decided to recast. I think it took a lot of the steam out of people who really wanted to see the sequel to this film. Also, it took them forever to get this sequel out. This sequel should have been out in like 3 to 4 years. I think it ended up taking like 5 or 6 years to get this thing out. So they didn't do well. I mean, this movie didn't do well in the theaters, but it was actually, it was reviewed very high. So people did like it who did see it, just not enough people saw it. So this particular movie, it was production budget was about 168 million. They were looking at somewhere about 504 million just to say this thing was profitable. I know the first one did gangbusters. The thing was just, I don't know what happened with the people on this, because it only actually brought in the box office about 173 million dollars. That is woefully low for this property. I mean, coming off the first one that they did, I mean, it's either saying that people really wanted to see Tom Hardy back in this, or maybe it just took too long for this film coming out, because overall they lost about $331 million. Once again, not including marketing on this movie. And I feel like they did market it pretty heavily. All right, so that's going to move me on to number 3. Number 3! All right, so number 3, and this one is only at number 3 because I kind of felt bad for it. I felt like I want to put it higher, but I felt bad for it because it's Borderlands. And Borderlands is a popular video game. And Borderlands has been around for a while. And they've been talking about making a movie for this video game for quite some time. I feel like they just took too long to make this movie. Other games have now taken the place of where Borderlands are. The people who play Borderlands are now older, so I feel like they lost their demographic, or like their fan base that could have went out to go see this movie, and they cast poorly. I mean, you got Kevin Hart, really? He's supposed to be the straight guy in this movie, the one who's supposed to be like even faced, and none of the comedic stuff's supposed to come from him. And then that's who you cast in this movie. Forget my feelings on Kevin Hart. But either way, Borderlands, they spent about $115 million to get this movie made. And from everybody I got told about this movie, everybody said it was just kind of a snooze fest. It was boring and was miscast and so on and so forth. So at $115 million, they're looking at about $345 million back. That's pretty low for what in essence is a big budget movie. 345, they only pulled in $32 million. $32 million. That is a failure all around. All around. I can't believe that and so they lost about $313 million on this film. That nobody who's involved in this movie can look at that and said that there was some type of win they got out of it. Only thing they can say, well, at least the movie got made. All right, so that moves us on to our next one. Number 2. All right, number 2. This is when we're getting more into the big box office stuff. And this one is only at number 2 because of the star power that it had in it. And that's Red One. I feel a little bad because the movie just came out like this month, but it started off so bad, it's got to be high on the list because there's no way, since it's a seasonal movie, there's no way that this thing is going to make its money back once we get past the Christmas season. Maybe in 10 years when we keep watching it over and over and their licensing fees and stuff like that gets this money back for this movie. But it cost them $250 million to see this film. You know why? Because they cast The Rock and they cast Chris Evans in it and Lucy Liu in it. And who is Commissioner Gordon? I can't remember his name right. You guys got to forgive me on that one. But it had it had pretty decent cast in this film. And I watched this movie. It wasn't bad. It was a Christmas movie. Not all Christmas movies are amazing, but I feel like people were just kind of pretty down on The Rock and they just didn't want to see it. It was long. I will tell you that. It's about 2 hours to watch this movie. And I don't think Christmas movies should be that long, especially when they're not like comedy heavy. It does have action scenes, but there's a lot of story in it. And it was like they could have cut some of that stuff out, got it down to about 130. Maybe they could have got more showings and made more money, or maybe they could have spent less on this movie because I don't see where all the $250 million went except to the cast. Chris Evans is a big name. The Rock is a big name. So, I mean, that's where they spent their money and it just wasn't well spent. So $250 million, they're expecting to get $750 million. This thing made worldwide $166 million. Asterisk, it's only been out for like a little over a month and a half or something like that. And some of these people on my list have been out for quite some time, but normally that's the time your revenue starts to drop down on this. So there's no way I see them getting close to $750 million, not including marketing. So I'm just going to say that because it could be, the percentages could be off and stuff like that. But this thing is DOA. It was dead on arrival. To lose, what I put down here, $500 million. Roughly, not even $500 million. I'm sorry, it's like more. Oh my goodness, it's at 750 million. At 650. Oh my God, it's like so almost $600 million. This thing lost on her. Sorry, my math was wrong on when I wrote it down. Almost $600 million they lost on this film. Geez, there's no way to make that back up except for the fact that you'll license it later, and just like every other Christmas song and every other Christmas movie, they'll get licensing fees from it going forward. All right, so that brings me to number 1. All right, number 1. This one seemed like it was easy, but I felt bad for it, but because it should have done more, and probably could have done more, but one of the characters kind of screwed this movie up, and that's Joker 2, Folie à Deux, and I don't know why I had to say that. Joker 2. This movie had it's coming off the back of the first Joker. Everybody went to see that. That was the number one rated R movie for a little bit until Deadpool 3 came out, or Deadpool and Wolverine, sorry. Until that one came out, everybody wanted to see this sequel. But then they turned it into a musical because they had to cast Lady Gaga. The musical part wasn't the worst part about it. It's just that when you have Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, she had a high bar to live up to, and it wasn't like she didn't act well or anything like that. It's just that people had Margot Robbie in mind so much for this particular movie, and Lady Gaga didn't give us anywhere close to the rendition of Harley Quinn that Margot Robbie gave us. So that was a bit of the disappointment. And then the way they wrote the character sucked. It really betrayed who Harley Quinn is. She was I mean, she's not the most genuine person, but she was an outright liar in this film, and like her turn against the Joker was for a stupid reason. It's like it didn't make sense, and they quickly, once this movie came out, said we're not doing a sequel. They knew this movie wasn't gonna work, and they still did it. The movie cost them $200 million because they had to pay Joaquin Phoenix, they had to pay Lady Gaga. It was a big budget. I don't know why, because it was just on like sets in prison and like courtrooms. It really should have cost them less, to be honest. It only made, so 200 million, they need 600 million to be profitable with the splits with the theater, not including marketing. This thing only made $206 million. Once again, another film dead on arrival. It didn't have the hype that it needed to, and it should have had the hype based off the first movie. So this thing lost $400 million. 406, I guess, if you want to be specific. $400 million. That is crazy insane for such a popular character that, as the Joker is. Every time we've had Joker in a film, whether it be Michael Keaton's Batman, that thing did great. Whether it be Christian Bale's Batman, that thing did great. The first Joker, that thing did great. They somehow screw it up in this one. It's like Joker prints money. You should have been able to make this thing easy, and it should have just stayed what you were doing, just gave another story, had him introduce Harley Quinn the correct way and not betray her character. In this film, we'd be talking about doing the Joker 3, or at least rolling this Joker over into the Matt Reeves Batman. All right, so I gotta do honorable mentions. So the honorable mentions on here, and I'm gonna run through them very quickly, and this one makes me sad, is Transformers 1, because that movie is rated very, very highly. It was one of the best animated films we've got for the Transformers or Transformers property since we got Transformers the movie. It sucks because this thing was only, what did it cost them to make this movie? It cost them $75 million. It only made $129 million. I'm not even gonna do what they expected to get out of this. So I was very, very sad about that particular one, because now it means that we're not gonna get anything else made specifically from Hasbro or Paramount. We're just gonna have to hope and pray somebody does something on Netflix. All right. Other honorable mention on here, Madam Web. For all you people that said Sony movies always bomb, I mean, Madam Web didn't completely bomb. It was, sorry, I gotta bring my little magnifying glass out here. It was $80 million. It made $100 million. This thing lost roughly about $160 million. That is crazy. But I mean, it wasn't Borderlands bad. Other on here is The Crow. That was $50 million. It only brought in $23 million. And if you're wondering what I mean by The Crow, I mean The Crow remake. That one actually they've been trying to do for decades at this point, and finally got around to making a movie, and then they completely screwed it up. Never Let Go, the one with Halle Berry. I actually saw the movie. The movie was interesting. It had a weird end at the end that didn't quite make sense, but this is very sad. They spent $20 million on it. It only made $16 million. Wow. Last ones I got on here is Challengers, $55 million. You would figure as a come out movie for her as an actress on her own, it could have done a little bit better. It didn't even make back the initial production budget. It only made $26 million. And If, I didn't have a lot of expectations for If, but I felt like Ryan Reynolds can at least sell a movie. He didn't do a good job on this one because it cost him $110 million on this. They only made 190 worldwide. That's worldwide numbers, like all across the world. It barely got past the production budget, and they still needed 2 more thirds to hit there. All right, so that's all I got for my top 5 biggest bombs for 2024. Put your list in the comments below. I think I got them, because all of them, but you may put them in a different order. And if this is the first time on your channel, make sure you subscribe, as well as click the notification button, so that way you're aware of all the other top 5s that come out roughly quickly, because there's still some best movies and worst movies I think that Manny may do. All right, so with that being said, you guys take care.